Hello and welcome to Run It Back on the Raptors Republic Network. I'm your host, Zulfi, as always, joined by Coty Wiles and Kyle Ramnarine. And before I say anything else, remember to like, share, and subscribe to the Raptors Republic YouTube channel. Lots going on, lots to cover, and amazing content and coverage by the Raptors Republic team. But we did have another week of NBA action for the Toronto Raptors, a couple games to go over. We'll break it all down for you, do a Raptors 905 report because there is a game to talk about this time, which is super exciting. So let's not waste any more time and get into it and run it back. That's time for the schedule recap as always, and it was not a great week for the Raptors win total as they go winless, finishing the week 0-4 with losses to the Nuggets, Kings, Clippers, and Lakers. Now, starting in Denver, the Nuggets were shorthanded with no Jamal Murray or Aaron Gordon, but it didn't matter in the end. Now, Toronto did look good for a majority of this game, leading by as many as 5 points at halftime and as many as 14 points on the night. And most of that damage came courtesy of Grady Dick as a sophomore continues his strong play. He finished with 26 points on 10 of 20 shooting while going 4 of 9 from distance. Now, he did show off the defense as well in this one with a couple nice steals and an insane chase down block. Never seen Grady do something like that before. Now, the Raptors held on to an 11-point lead with just under 6 minutes to go, but that's when things began to unravel for this young squad once again. Nikola Jokic, who finished with 28 points, 14 rebounds, and 13 assists, yet another triple-double, began dissecting the Raps and finding his teammates. Now, it didn't help that Jakob Poeltl, who was solid for the day, had 24 points and 11 rebounds. He picked up his 5th and 6th fouls in a less than 30-second span with 4 minutes to go. Now, without their big man, Toronto got outscored 14-8 in the final frame, and then a pair of costly turnovers by the Raps put Denver ahead. Now, RJ Barrett did get one final look, but unfortunately it rimmed out after some pretty questionable defense from Russell Westbrook. We can debate that later, but that was about as close as it gets, but ultimately a loss. Now, from there, the Raptors made their way to Sacramento to face the Kings, and like they've done all season, it was another game the Raptors led at various instances, but ultimately let go. Toronto entered the fourth quarter with a 4-point lead. This time it was largely thanks to RJ Barrett, who had 23 points, and Davion Mitchell, who finished with 20 points on an efficient 8 of 11 shooting to go with 6 assists, and a bit of a revenge game against his former squad, arguably his best game as a Raptor. Now, that lead unfortunately quickly evaporated in the final frame, though, as Toronto got outscored 33-19. Now, there was a key 9-0 run by the Kings when they trailed by 6 early in the fourth that put them ahead. DeRozan doing most of the damage there in the final frame, as he does. Then the Raptors made their way to the City of Angels for the good old LA back-to-back, starting things off against the Clippers. It was Toronto's first time at the new Intuit Dome and presumably the first time the Canadian anthem was played at the arena, so that was pretty neat. Now, the Raptors also got a major boost heading into the game as Immanuel Quickley made his return to the lineup after missing 8 games with a pelvic contusion. Now, he didn't come out the gates firing, though, as that was reserved for former Raptor Norman Powell, who was in a bit of a heat check mode early. Mr. Understand the Grind finished the game with 24 points. Meanwhile, Quickley did score a nice basket in the early minutes, but he was quickly sent to the bench with 2 early fouls. And from there, the Clippers built their lead up to 9 points heading into the fourth, largely thanks to Harden, who finished with 24, 12, and 7. But that was when IQ woke up and reminded Raptors fans what he can do. The lead guard scored 11 of his 21 points in the final frame, getting some tough twos to fall before the Raps were brought all the way back when he drilled a game-tying 3 with less than a minute to go. Now, from there, it became a free throw game, and the Clips did miss a couple to leave the door open, but it was some questionable late game execution by the Raptors. They put the ball in Poeltl's hands when they needed a 3, so LA just played hacky-yak. Now, from there, Poeltl did pull off an impressive intentional miss at the free throw line to give the Raptors a shot, but ultimately his putback fell short and they lost yet again. Then the Raptors took on the Lakers with one final hope at a win for the week, and stop me if you've heard this before. The Raptors started strong, but it didn't last long. Now, Toronto led after the first quarter and were up by as many as 10 points in the game, but they got outscored 97-69 through the next 3 quarters. Now, turnovers were a big part of that as the Raptors gave the ball away 16 times in this game. Barrett was the biggest culprit on the night for that. He did finish with 18 points, but struggled efficiency-wise, going 5 of 15 shooting, and he gave the ball away 4 times. And although Anthony Davis left this game with injury in the third quarter, he didn't exit before obliterating a Jakob Poeltl shot attempt at the rim and racking up 22 points. Now, Toronto did make things interesting as they often do, even leading by as many as 8 points in the third. But even without AD on the floor, the Lakers were able to rattle off a 16-5 run. And then a Dalton Connect triple give them the lead, cruising to a blowout win from that point on. Now, as always, LeBron James did his thing against Toronto. He becomes the oldest player in NBA history at 39 years old to record back-to-back triple-doubles, breaking his own record that was set at 36-year-old. Continues to defy Father Time. Now, with that, the Raptors end the week at 0-4. They are now 2-9 on the year, and they drop down one more spot, officially last place in the Eastern Conference. Not a lot of wins, but a lot of actions to talk about, so let's break it all down. All right, boys, a lot of action from this week to go over, but obviously one of the biggest things for the Raptors was the return of Immanuel Quickley. A pretty good game, started off a little slow against the Clippers in his first game back, but he really did come through towards the end there. So Coty, I'll start with you. What were your initial thoughts of seeing Immanuel Quickley back on the floor, the good and maybe even some of the bad?
Just happy he's back, right? Like this is a team that the injuries bug has been biting and biting again, but they are back. Well, at least Emmanuel Quickly's back. They're slowly starting to get a bit healthier. And then as I say that, this week, Jacoby Walter and Jonathan Mobo suffer injuries. Looks like Walters is going to be a bit longer than Mobo's. Hey, but yeah, it was nice to see him back. Like you mentioned, slow start, but really kept Toronto into it in the fourth quarter there. 12 points on 4 of 8 shooting in the final frame against the Clippers. So great to see him back. It's great to see more of that shot making come from the guard spot. That's something that uh, Davion Mitchell, Jamal Shed, not necessarily their strong suits. So it was great to see him back. Honestly, he's part of the future, right? So I'm happy he's healthy.
Yeah, you mentioned as well, Jacoby Walter is out. He re-sprained that shoulder earlier in the week that had kind of kept him out for pretty much all of training camp and the preseason. And he's going to be reevaluated within a week. So he's out for at least 1 week, potentially longer. So we'll see how that goes. But Kyle, Coty mentioned it a bit as well. There was
Mhm.
that little bit of a hesitancy almost at first from Emmanuel Quickley. But as the game went on and it got into clutch time, and I said this before, when he doesn't really have the time or opportunity to think his way out of his shots. Like he can really be effective, especially we saw it in the clutch. What did you see from Emmanuel Quickley that kind of, again, either the positive or stuff that you want to see him kind of improve upon as he gets his legs under him?
Overall, like I wasn't gonna harp on him too much because again, first game back, you're dealing with the rustiness of coming back. So I expected some sort of slow start, but it was great to see him back. Great to see him hitting clutch shots because I think Raptors need a more reliable closer right now, and we can talk about like closeout plays and everything later on a bit. But something that I did want to kind of mention, I did pick up in the game, and I was watching S's video he came out this morning with, I believe he noticed it too as well. For some reason, like quickly, anytime he would enter the pick and roll or he'd when he was driving, sometimes he'd pick up his dribble. He'd pick it up way too early. In the pick and roll, he'd pick it up way too early and it'd kind of halt all the movement because immediately they'd rush to play him closer or he'd make a wrong decision. So that's something I feel like he'll probably end up fixing, but something that needs to be fixed going forward because that was kind of it was just halting the play in itself. He would call for the pick and roll, but then before he could actually finish, he'd immediately pick up that dribble and the whole play would kind of just fall apart. I don't know if you guys noticed it last night as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you guys like Zulfi? Do you think that's more just like a first game back kind of thing? It
Yeah.
seemed to work itself out a little bit throughout the game, or do you think that's like a more deeper rooted issue?
I wouldn't go as far as to say it's a deeper rooted issue, but even if you go back to last season, Quickly's kind of had that. Especially he's
Mhm.
had situations where he picks up his dribble and jumps in the air before he knows where he's passing. Like he's had some of those situations, especially again last season when he was first really getting into this whole starting point guard role. You saw a bit of that. I think that's more of a Quickly thing where he just gets a bit ahead of himself. So yeah, you're right, Kyle and Coty. Like I think it's something that he does need to continue to work on. But I don't like I'm not necessarily worried that it's
Mhm.
super like the rust or anything. It's kind of just him figuring out this whole point guard
Yeah,
thing, and I think
Mhm.
he'll get better with it. And again, I always just go back to like the less Quickly has time to really just think his way through. I think the better he plays off his instincts. When his first basket of the game, he hit that decel dribble, got some contact, and got a floater to go. And then
Mhm.
later in the game, he gets hit with a wraparound pass, and the defense is closing out on him in the corner. That's a shot he needs to take. He's
Mhm.
their best 3-point shooter by far, but he pump fakes. kind of dumps it off to Jakob inside and it leads to a turnover. Like Quickley, when the shot clock's winding down and he gets the ball and he just has to go, I think he's much better of a player. And I want to see more of that in earlier situations as well. So hopefully that confidence can kind of continue to build as this goes. But I think we kind of talked about it. The injuries have really kind of stymied a lot of the continuity for this team. And just to talk about it, I think the Raptors at one point or another have had like anywhere between like 5 to 7 guys out of the lineup. So I did want to kind of chat about the injuries a little bit as well. What has really like concerned you guys most about these injuries? And you can say nothing if it's just you just feel like it's bad luck and there's nothing to it. But Coty, has there been anything from the injuries that has stood out to you?
I don't know. It's obviously a combination of bad luck, but I'm not privy to like if this is a medical staff issue because even dating back to last year with this new kind of, there's been a lot of turnover within the organization. I'm not exactly sure what the status of the medical staff is, but I mean, a lot of it just does seem unlucky, right? Like
Mhm.
even Scotty's injury last year, with the hand, it just seemed unlucky. Nikola Jokic hitting him in the face this year unintentionally just seems like it's unlucky stuff. So I will tend to lean that way, but it's becoming a bit of a routine thing. Like even for Bruce Brown, the way they handled that
Good point.
is is a bit weird to me, but I think it's just a case by case scenario. And then it's especially for Scotty. Scotty's have been unlucky.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I don't necessarily like really read too much into the fact that they've been so injury prone the last couple seasons. I just think this year especially, it's just more unfortunate than anything because how much it's kind of I don't want to say like ruined, but kind of ruined the continuity for this team. Again, the barbecue trio of Scotty, Quickly, and RJ have not played a game together. They've not been on the floor at the same time. And I think that is a big thing to kind of keep in mind, especially for the rebuilding Raptors. And we're talking about development wins being more important than actual wins. Well, then you're not really getting that development from these guys and building that chemistry. Again, like what roles are these guys going to be in when everyone's at full strength? Like you mentioned earlier, Kyle, a guy like Immanuel Quickley, you're probably going to want him to have the ball in his hands late in game situations. But that looks very different for how it's going to be executed when you have a Scotty Barnes on the floor and his gravity. You saw it in this game with Immanuel Quickley and Grady Dick on the floor, what the spacing looked like. That was much different than what it's been like with an RJ and Grady handling the ball. Defensive coverages will change and things like that. A guy like Grady is getting so much attention right now. And obviously, that's not going to be the same when a guy like Scotty Barnes is back on the floor. But you can't really see that yet because of all these injuries that have happened. That's kind of what's concerned me the most, to be honest. Kyle, I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that or if you kind of see it the same way.
I'm kind of with you guys when it comes just to the luck factor. I think right now the NBA is at a huge injury bug. Like yesterday, Zion's out indefinitely. Jaylen Brown is injured. Kevin Durant got injured. Kyle Kuzma is injured. Like so many stars have been injured. And the Raptors, unfortunately, I don't want to look too much into the medical staff yet. Knock on wood, it doesn't continue up into the season because then I'd have to start looking at the medical staff and see what's going on there. But right now, I feel like it just comes down to the Raptors' horrible luck, honestly. But hats off to Darko for dealing with the cards he was dealt, and these games have been close, and these are winnable games at the end of the day, you know. And if I could like transition a little bit and ask you guys, what do you guys think about the Raptors in these final minutes, these winnable games, the plays that have been called, and how they're just executing in the clutch here?
Yeah, I think that's the next step for these
Mm.
guys. As from a coaching staff perspective, from a player's perspective, I think it's been poor execution down the stretch on both fronts. Um, I think the decision making by some guys at the court has also been disappointing, I guess, to say the least. RJ Barrett in one game took a transition pull up three when he had there was 4 or 5 seconds left on the clock. I'm not sure what game this was. I know this was last week.
Mm.
It was the first game against Denver, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, yeah, I
It
remember
was
that.
and it was like you're just so good at getting to the rim. Just let's get to the rim or let's call a timeout there. And that leads me to the Darko stuff, which was evident for the Clippers game, Zulfi, where they just did the same action twice to Jakob Poeltl, and that's the worst. That was the worst free throw shooter on the floor. Of course, they're going to jump all over that. And then it ends up we need Jakob to heroically throw it off the rim and try to put it
Yeah,
in.
he almost pulled it off, to be
And
fair.
to be exactly, he almost did it, but that's not the look obviously they were looking for. Hey, so
Yeah, like it's interesting. I think Blake Murphy tweeted, and I think it sums it up pretty well. For 47 minutes, this team is incredibly entertaining and competitive. And in the last minute of games where they're within a possession or two, they're basically like 1-5 right now. They just
Mhm.
haven't been able to execute. But also, like, not to make an excuse, but that's kind of what young teams do and what they
Mhm.
are. Like, they just don't have the experience in it. And Darko Rakovic is, I think, for the most part, an offensive mastermind, but he is also a second year coach and he's figuring it out. You're right. Things like what happened at the end there, you should just be better in those situations. You need a three. Why are you putting the ball into the hands of your center in that spot who's not just going to be able to shoot threes, let alone like make free throws consistently? So I don't know if that's the best management there. But also, like, if you go a couple minutes earlier when Jakob was not having a great game, Darko Rakovic put Bruno Fernando in and he really provided a spark and helped that comeback. He benched RJ Barrett for a couple minutes there and kind of got a spark from some of the other guys. So like he is making good decisions for the most part. It's just execution late. Coty, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll end it with this. Six of the Raptors' last 7 games have been decided by 6 points or less, and four of them were one possession games, and they're 1-6, and then they're 2-8 on the season. Obviously, it's like, and these are against good teams. They're doing this against this on this Western road trip. They've had such a gauntlet to start the year. 2-8, like, but like nobody's upset. Like, I think
Yeah.
if you would have told me that, oh, 10 games into the season, us on Run It Back are talking about they need to finish better because we're in all these one possession games against all these playoff teams, I'd feel pretty good. And Kyle, I don't know about you, but like if I'm Masai Ujiri and co, these competitive losses, and I think everybody's united, like
Mhm.
I don't think you can plan with how the Raptors start, especially with the injuries out. They're doing this
Yeah,
without
exactly.
barbecue. They're doing this without Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk. The rookies are stepping up. It's been a good vibe, but see now we're wanting to see the next step already. And I think these reps are good, whether even though it's not going good, the reps are important, even though the barbecue guys aren't necessarily getting them.
Mhm. And listen, like every team got to start somewhere, right? Every young team has to go through the trials and tribulations. Like OKC wasn't always just this good, they grew and they meshed together. So, and this again, like it's like you said, it's without a healthy Raptors team too. We don't have all our starters, we don't have all our players, we don't have the full unit. And the fact that they're this competitive, I don't think anyone could really say that they saw this coming. People can make the excuse that, oh, the East is weak right now or whatever, but I didn't see this coming from this team. I didn't see that there would be Grady Dick would be balling out like this, or the team would be this competitive, or mobile would be this amazing off the start. But even if we're losing, again, it's just vibes this whole season. I'm enjoying watching this team. I'm having fun. Yeah, we could close out a little bit better, but again, I'm not too angry. My expectations were even that high to begin with.
And they're doing it with the 29th defense, like Zulfi. I mean, you mentioned the Darko offensive piece. He's really that point 5 offense that he's been working on since last year. It's clicking. Like they got the 14th offense right now. They lead the NBA in assists. They're rebounding well. It's just they got to figure out the defense.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up. And I mentioned it last week too, and I think we've talked about it. They're building a bit of an identity here on offense. It's what's honestly kept them in these games and kept them competitive because we know the defense hasn't been doing it. Like you mentioned, 29th with defensive rating, 29th in opponents per game at the time of recording. They were 30th for a lot of the season so far. But like it's interesting because when we got into the season, Darko Rakovic mentioned it's going to be a point of emphasis. We're going to be different this year. It's going to be a heavy point of attack defense on the ball. Their MIG, the most important guy, is going to be the guy defending the ball. And in some respects, they've done good in that. They're like sixth in deflections. They're hustling really hard. But at the same time, they have a really young team and it's causing some mistakes. They lead the league in fouls. So it's kind of a catch 22 right now with this defense. So I'm kind of curious on your guys' thoughts. And I'll go back to you, Coty. Like, what do you think it is with this defense? Is it just that they're just really aggressive and they're kind of paying the price for it, or is there just more to that they need to fix?
Yeah, I think they're doing something different. They're changing their defensive identity a little bit this year, which is changing things. Like you said, they're fouling a lot. That's part of the on ball pressure that they're doing, and it's a bunch of young guys. Like it's a lot when they got four rookies out there trying to play defense. Like and they're all been fouling quite a bit. Like Jameson Battle is as much as I think he's impacting. He yeah he tries hard on defense, and that's the thing. They all are trying, and that's why it's almost like you watch the game, it doesn't really feel like they're the 29th defense in the NBA just because of the amount of ball pressure and the amount of like hounding that there is. But yeah, it's stuff he's get figured out. Samson did a great breakdown about in his mailbag episode about the Jakob Poeltl piece of it and how he's getting put into all these 2-on-1 situations because of the higher on ball rate, and then they're trailing and then they're playing from behind the ball handler. And Poeltl is struggling in that 2-to-1 area on those 2-on-1s, but Mobo, for instance, has better numbers because in those he's switching, right? So
Mhm.
it's they're figuring stuff out. And of course, one of the best defenders on the team, Scotty, has been out for games now. So I think Scotty being out is part of it. Fouling a lot, and they're just young.
Yeah, I think for the most part, I'm with you, and I'm glad you brought up the Samson piece. Obviously, injuries play a part in it, but like he mentioned in that piece, like they're playing heavy on ball and funneling guys inside into those situations, and then a more mobile big in a Jonathan Mobo is having better success with than Jakob Poeltl. But it's still kind of surprising to me just how much Jakob has struggled on defense this year. The Raptors are about 6 points better with their defensive rating with him off the floor. Again, that's skewed a little bit. You had a bunch of games against an Anthony Davis, Jokic, and Sabonis, so I understand that. But still, he's basically your only rim presence. And unless you start trusting a Bruno Fernando and Jonathan Mobo to take some of those minutes to kind of alleviate some of that pressure, you're gonna need Jakob Poeltl to step up if you have any hope of this defense improving. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. Like it's either you kind of help him out a little bit because you're right. I think he's a little overtaxed right now, Coty, just with the situations that he's being put in defensively. So we saw it against the Clippers where Bruno Fernando provided some like really solid minutes there and again in spot situations, but maybe you need a bit of that to give Jakob some relief because he's really been asked to do a lot on the defensive end. And so far it seems like it's too much for him to handle. Kyle, do you think Jakob Poeltl is kind of built for the situation or there needs to be some change here?
I think he is built for the situation. Honestly, it's like for the whole defense as a whole, you guys took the words right out of my mouth. Like, I do think it comes down to the fact that it's four rookies were on the court. It's a young team. Like, the defense is not going to be great. But I did see a stat. I don't know if you guys have read it. It did surprise me. So, the best defensive field goal percentage in the NBA this season amongst rookies, number one is Jonathan Mobo with 32.9%. So, we do have the foundations of a great defense, and I think honestly maybe Mobo can help take the prices or the pressure off Jakob a little bit too. But I don't think we should put all all the blame on Poeltl. Um, it's just unfortunate set of events right now the Raptors got to deal with. Like I feel like if we had our full team, we would not be this bad defensively.
Yeah, it's hard to draw too many conclusions. It is early in the
Mm.
season. We're about a month in, just about 10 games played. And then you've also had as many injuries as the Raptors had. It is hard to draw some conclusions, but we can at least say there's some trends to keep an eye
Mm.
on. The defense being a big one so far. So we'll see how that shapes up. But that pretty much covers our action here in terms of the Raptors. Now I think it's time to talk about the 905. So we'll transition into that. The 905 season is officially underway, so we are here with our 905 report once again. And to start things off, a really big opening win, and it was much better of a start for the 905 this year than it was last season when it took them about a month to win their first game, starting 0-8 on the schedule. But now they already have their first dub. And a quick summary for everyone. It was a strong game against the Delaware Bluecoats, where the 905 ended up winning 116 to 115. A good first half. They led by as many as 14 points at halftime, but the Bluecoats, namely former Raptor and three-time champion Patrick McCaw, had a good second half kind of coming back in that game. It was a bit of a sloppy second half by the 905 as well. Some turnovers. They kind of got killed on the offensive glass a little bit, but none of that mattered in the final seconds when Tyreek Key walked it off with a game-winning buzzer beater three. For those that don't know, he was a tryout player brought in by the 905, and they were pretty impressed with his ability to shoot. And he showed fans why that is by knocking down that three at the end. A lot of fun performances. DJ Carden finished with 25 points, 5 of 8 from 3 and 7 assists. Kennedy Chandler also had 25 points, 10 assists, 7 rebounds. And then Brandon Carlson, 16 points, 14 rebounds, and 3 blocks. He was pretty aggressive all game. So I know that's a lot, but again, all positives from the 905, at least through one game. Coty, I'll start with you as a resident 905 guy. What or who stood out to you from this game?
Yeah, I mean it's been you've been banging the guards drum on Twitter, and they were the guard combo of DJ Card and Kenny Chandler were great. You listed off the stats there, but they really were. the go-to options for the team. I had wrote about that they would be, especially Carton, more so I was thinking, but Chandler proved that he's just as good. And they fit well alongside each other. Carton more off ball, Chandler's more of that of the point guard, but they really led the team, and they were a big beneficiary of them was Brandon Carlson. And like Kyle, maybe I'll let you take the lead on Carlson. I know that was somebody that you identified that you really liked, but yeah, these guards combined for 50 points, 17 assists. They shot it well from three. At least Carton was 5 of 8. So they played well, and then Carlson also picked up some slack as well.
Kyle, what do you think about Brandon Carlson's game?
This is why I wanted this team to have him so much. I was so sad that there was a chance we might lose him, but amazing. Like you said, 16 points, 14 rebounds, 3 blocks. He had an early chase down block in the game too, and that's something I love to see from our centers, the hustling back on defense, hustling for the rebounds, playing with heart, because last season I did see some of our backup centers, they weren't fighting for those boards. They weren't boxing out. They weren't positioning themselves well, and his shot might not be falling well or falling right now, but he's taking them and he is getting open, and spacing the floor is something huge in the modern day NBA. And honestly, I might be getting on the hype train too early, but I do believe if he keeps this up, like he could be even a backup center for the actual Raptors, because I love his game. I've been in love with his game, and I honestly, truly, the same way I believed in Grady last season, I believe in Carlson this season. Honestly, I feel like he can grow to being an amazing center and a defensive center too, not even just an offensive center. He does it all right now. And it's kind of funny how the 905 team is kind of mirroring the Raptors right now in terms of fun to watch. They're just an amazing team that it's gonna be excited to watch them for the rest of the season.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree.
through
I think he's a two-way level player.
he is.
He got they liked Jameson. They were able to keep Brandon Carlson. But like I wouldn't be surprised if another team came, like if another team needs a big, they scooped up Carlson because he's free to go anywhere. But yeah, I think he's a two-way level guy, Kyle.
Agreed.
Yeah, he's been, I think, through one game at least, when you look at Brendan Carlson and the way he's played, you can't say he lacks aggressiveness. I think that was the biggest thing that stood out to me. Like the numbers were obviously fantastic, 16 points, 14 rebounds, again, 3 blocks, but he just, when the ball got in his hands, he didn't waste a possession for a second. No dribbles were taken just because. He never cut just for the sake of cutting. He was moving with a ton of aggressiveness, a ton of confidence. Again, he was always trying to do something positive, which is what you kind of want to see from these guys. They're going to have to make the most of their opportunities, especially if they do get looks at the NBA level. They're going to be spot minutes. They're going to be small opportunities where they really have to make the most of it. So you kind of want to see these guys take advantage of that. But a guy that I think a lot of Raptors fans are interested in, who didn't necessarily pop off this game, is Ulrich Shamshe. He only played a handful of minutes. He kind of got in and out of the rotation pretty quick when he was in there. He finished with 4 rebounds and 3 blocks. Coty, I have some thoughts on this, but I'll start with you. What did you see from Ulrich in this game?
He does not stop giving effort, man. Like the motor is always running. Like that's what impressed me the most about him. It was a rough debut. Like I was talking to Blake Murphy about it, and he's just apparently from what he's just a hard worker. And like uh we both thought that like he's super young. That was one thing we were talking about. He's December 30th birthday, only 18 years old. He's younger than a lot of freshmen in college right now.
Yeah.
Uh, but he is like there was a couple times of drop coverage where he just like would drop like all the way to underneath the basket in pick and roll, and it was just like allowing layups. Like that was one bigger thing I noticed from him. But he doesn't stop working on the court, and apparently he's a lot of the first guy at the gym kind of stuff. So I'm excited
Yeah.
for the future. He's young. It was the first game, but I mean it was definitely a rougher showing.
Yeah, like when you talk about him being young, he is the youngest player in the NBA right now. He was the youngest player drafted. He's younger than just about anyone in the league. So obviously, there's a lot of maturation that needs to happen there. And I can second that him being a gym rat thing, Coty. I talked to 9 to 5 assistant coaches, and they mentioned like this dude is always in the gym, first one in, last one out type of guy. He's always working, and I think he knows it's the fact that he's young and the speed of the game here is a lot different than what he's faced, so he has to get used to that. But kind of like to the positives, his defensive instincts, I think, are really sharp for the most part. Sometimes he gets a little like stuck out there, but he has the physical tools to recover in a lot of these situations as well. I think his third block, he kind of was just trailing the play, turned around at the last second to get the block on a layup attempt. And you kind of just see those that confidence in how he moves on defense is really there. You do want to see some of that start translating onto the offensive end as well. Again, when he's on offense, it's a lot of just like when the ball gets in his hand, who can I hand it off to? Who can I pass it to? Or like, I'm going to try to clean things up. And you want to see a bit more confidence in that regard. Obviously, I'm sure that's something the coaching staff is working on him with, and it's going to come. You even saw during training camp when he was with the Raptors, he was spending a lot of time with Drew Jones, and you head coach for the 905. So it's clearly a point of emphasis. There's some they're trying to work on. But I think generally we can say this was a pretty positive start for the 905. Not too many complaints coming out of it. Kyle, can you agree with that?
Yeah, I honestly didn't have too many nitpicks with them. Like the guard play is something I was excited to see as well. They were scoring. It looks promising for the future. Brendan Carlson, obviously, like he was one of my guys I had my eye on, impressed me in his debut. So again, like I said, like I'm just hyped to see, so excited to see them play and see how this team works because I honestly think they'll probably be winning a lot more games than losing this season and probably complete flip around from last season as well.
I also want to shout out Quincy Guerrier really quick, who I thought he was a starter. I didn't think he would be a starter coming in, but they started pretty big with Carlson, Guerrier, and Disu out there to kind of make up for the smaller backcourt that they have. But 17 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals for him. Played with physicality, guarded multiple positions on defense, and he shot it pretty well in college last season at Illinois. Only 1 of 3 from three last night. But he's standing out, rebounding athletically and defensively. If he can continue to be efficient on offense, which he was 7 of 10 from the field, and just he knows his role. If he can continue to play finish, maybe shoot the three a bit better, he is he could be an impact player for the Raptors 905 as well.
Absolutely, and he's also Canadian, so we love that. He's on the training camp roster for the AmeriCup qualifier, so we'll see if he takes some time away from the 905, if he ends up making that roster. If not, I'm sure they'll be happy to keep him. The Raptors 905 do have a couple games next week. They're still on the road though. The home debut won't be until November 22nd, so a bit of time on the road to keep watching this 905 squad. But if the first game is any indication, they will be fun contests. They'll be super competitive, and hopefully start racking up some wins. And that is something that we will all get to enjoy. And again, we will keep bringing you coverage for that through the 905 report. But that wraps it up for this week. We'll be back next week with some more information. All right, boys, now we're going to look ahead to next week's schedule to see what the Raptors have going on. Now, after their LA back-to-back to end the week, the Raptors don't get much rest, actually. They return to action on Tuesday, and it's a pretty big game as it's Toronto's first Emirates NBA Cup game of the year, and they're visiting the struggling Milwaukee Bucks. Now, the Raptors did go 1-3 in the group stage last year, so here's hoping to perform a bit better, but it's a pretty good squad to go up against right now in the Bucks that are reeling. And the action in the NBA Cup won't stop there for Toronto, as then they take on the Pistons on Friday. It's at home though, so fans will get to see the purple courts for the first time in person and see what that's all about. And then they visit defending champion Celtics to end the week off on the second night of a back-to-back, so it's going to be pretty tough. So the Raptors schedule has done them no favors so far. I think we can all agree on that. But what do you guys have your eyes on this week? Coty, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I said it last week, and I'm gonna say the same thing. I'm not trying to cop out. It's just I genuinely feel this way. Just keep playing the right way. Just literally keep doing what they're doing. The defense will need some tweaking, but they're competing defensively, so that's what I like. Uh, they're passing the ball well, leading the NBA in assists. They're rebounding the ball well. They're playing the right way. It's just the injuries have gone bad, and the late game execution, which is I'll tie that in a little bit too. Like maybe we could see some growth in the late game execution. But that's basically it. Just keep doing what they're doing. I think everybody should be happy with the way these guys are playing, especially with the injuries. So just keep doing it, man. Just keep doing it, and hopefully the injury luck and the defensive performance in the late game scenarios can clean itself up as we go on.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with hoping for competitive losses. Again, try your best and live with the outcomes, I think is kind of the approach a lot of fans are taking this year. And I think it also makes sense with the rebuilding Raptors. For me, it's really simple. I don't have a whole lot of thought behind this. Just beat the Milwaukee Bucks. They are struggling. I want to see Doc Rivers get fired personally. I don't think that was the right move for them firing Adrian Griffin last year. You can tell me everything you want about their strength of schedule being easy. That's why he won 30 games. He's doing a lot better than Doc Rivers did on that team. So I think the Milwaukee Bucks are a great team to kind of take advantage of how they've been struggling lately for the Raptors. And the rest of their schedule, like, again, I know they're playing the Pistons, who aren't that great, but they're 4-5 right now. They've actually technically been better than the Bucks record-wise, and they're always a team that the Raptors kind of play funny. You just never know with those games how they kind of end up. And the Celtics on the second night of a back-to-back is going to be a tough one for the Raptors. I don't know how that one's going to go. So I see the Milwaukee Bucks as an opportunity. Get a win, kind of punctuate that game against the Bucks. Hopefully, get Doc Rivers fired, and I'll be happy with it.
Hey, he's not starting anymore, but Kyle, Gary Trent Jr. revenge game. I don't know. He just got demoted to the bench, but
No, no. I'm with Zulfi on this. We're on the same narrative. Doc Rivers, your time is up, buddy. Darvin Ham, you too. I haven't forgot about what you did to the Lakers last season either. Both of you. I hope the Raptors put them in the ground this week because this needs to be finished. Okay, I got that Doc Rivers narrative. They've been riding that 2008 championship up to now. He's coached the Bucks into the ground. I hope Masai comes out and starts recruiting Giannis. Like I hope everything just goes right for us in that game. But overall, just again beat the Bucks. We need to put Doc Rivers away. This it's gotta end.
Beating the Bucks, they it does come with the subplot of like, hey, if Giannis gets really upset with that, he might request that. Who knows? You never know with NBA superstars nowadays. And that's something the Raptors fans should be happy about if Giannis is kind of not like enjoying the process there anymore, especially if there's reports of him and Damian Lillard not meshing as much as people would have assumed. So we'll see how that goes. And also, I think the 2008 Celtics championship deserves even more credit now that they did it with Doc Rivers as head coach. Coty, you look like you had something to say there.
I was just gonna say, I think Brian Windhorst said that the trade kind of confirmed the trade rumors are like kind of true. I don't know if that's like meaning about Giannis or what, but I mean, hey, if we beat them and it sparked something in him, I don't know. But I mean, just for the Giannis, I don't know why we got into Giannis coming to the Raptors. This is what it's come to. But I think he'd want to go. I think the reason would be because he wants rings.
Yeah.
And
he's not coming here.
Hey man, the Nets are apparently a favorite to get him. So who knows at this point, like what's going to happen there? But
I didn't see that, but okay.
Yeah. The Nets are up there. I think the Warriors are obviously in the mix, but this is a Raptors podcast, so we'll stick it with the Raptors here. They can hopefully get a couple wins here. We'll see how it goes. Like Coty said, just be competitive and live with the results. So we'll kind of leave it at that. But that, I think, is a good spot to leave it for this week. Again, Doc Rivers, hopefully he gets fired. But thank you for tuning in to Run It Back. I'm your host, Zulfi Sheikh, as always, joined by Coty Wiles and Kyle Ramnarine. Again, we hope you're caught up on all things Raptors. And always be sure to like, comment, let us know what you thought. Do you agree with our takes on the Raptors so far? Have the injuries been a blessing in disguise, seeing some people set up, or has it just been bad? Let us know what you think. And again, a lot of coverage happening at Raptors Republic, both on the YouTube and the website. So please check it out. But that wraps it up here. Feel free to enjoy the rest of the content. And we'll be back next week to cover it all and run it back.